How you feeling, mate? Are you starting to flag a little bit? This is our last recording today.
I've perked up. We had a bit of a dip after lunch.
Yeah.
The kimchi and the bubble
but
tea.
food always does that to me. I try not to eat lunchtimes generally
Because your stomach's busy, it takes all the blood from your brain.
And that's devastating for me.
Busy stomach. Interesting, I thought, walking around the exhibitor space at INTA.
Yeah.
It's quite a big space,
It's
isn't
huge.
it? Not enough freebies.
No, I've noticed that.
I mean, we only went for the chocolate from the WIPO stand because the guy said there was
and there
chocolate.
was none?
There was no.
And there was
I
none?
don't want to book about patterns.
But I've noticed it's a little bit different. So conference in the UK, it's freebie central, isn't it?
Yeah, little rubber things you can squeeze.
Yeah, stress
Lots of
toys.
always a
Stress toys.
Yeah. Rubik's cubes.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah, always lots of food, nibbly bits.
Yeah. And loads of interesting offerings. It's definitely changed. I mean, you've got kind of the classic offerings, but a lot of the AI and the next generation IT support stuff is interesting, and we've got to start taking it seriously.
Definitely, yeah.
You said we've got podcasts.
We've got a podcast coming up on AI. Yes, that should be good, and how it's going to improve the patent drafting process. So that's something to look forward to.
Lee Davis and Gwilym Roberts are the two IPs in a pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property, brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
But anyway, today, on this podcast, our target market. We came to the US to break it, didn't we? Not break it as in the leave it irreparably damaged.
No, the other way. The good way.
But to get the podcast
Shea
out.
Stadium. We want a Shea Stadium. This is our Shea Stadium moment.
Yeah,
Beatles fans.
And we said if we get anyone on, we want AIPLA on, didn't we? And we've got AIPLA.
The boss.
And we've got the bosses. We've got the bosses. So Vince, Anne, do you want to introduce yourselves in whichever order you see is most important?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry you missed the rum cake. That was a freebie. That was quite delicious.
Oh, that was great. Where was that?
Yeah, I don't know, somewhere. I'm sorry, I can't remember who gave it to me. But it was quite delicious.
Good.
I'm Anne Mueting. I am president of AIPLA. I am in the almost exactly the middle of my
How long is your term?
year.
It's a year.
It's a year. We
Same
have a
as
year.
us.
It's although it's quite, we call it the ladder to get here. So it's 1 year as president, but it's a year as second vice president, and then a first vice president, and then president-elect. Finally, you get to the presidency, and then still yet another year as immediate past president.
That's good. 5 years of continuity. Okay.
Yeah. So we have three. So we have vice president, president. So the vice president is the president-elect. President, past president, so it's not quite as much continuity. But so Gwilym, my colleague Gwilym, is our honorary secretary, and he has that post for as long as we want him to have it. So that he's the kind of the treacle in the engine of the presidency, aren't you?
Nobody wants treacle in an engine. That's a terrible analogy.
Perhaps institutional memory. That sounds much better.
A lot better than treacle.
Thanks a lot. How are you finding your presidency?
I love it. It's thank God that we have Vince with the institutional memory that is our executive director. Makes the job much easier for me, but it is a lot of work, a lot of stretching outside of my comfort zone, even more so than when I've been on lower rungs of the ladder. But I think, like I said, if it weren't for Vince and the staff at AIPLA, I would have a much more difficult job.
Cool. And we're so excited to have you on, Vince, because Gwilym's asked me to learn as much as I can from other membership associations so that I can make SEPA better, haven't you? So this is a big learning experience for me.
No, Lee's brilliant, but his
you.
willingness to learn, however, is part of his brilliance. So there we go.
So Vince, who are you, sir?
I'm Vince Garlock. I'm the executive director of AIPLA, and I proudly serve the board of directors and the current executive committee. Our board is a 19-member group of professionals chosen from across the country and different disciplines in IP to give the authority and the knowledge that we need to make decisions on, particularly on policy.
Did you say 90?
19.
19?
19.
Wow, I'd love to have a board as small as that. So I have a council of 27.
Yeah, it's and I'm always amazed. People like Anne who they're volunteers. We do not certainly provide that kind of financial support that you would like to, but in order to get to her position, she's been, how many committees have you led?
Oh, led probably 4 or 5.
And so those are 2 years.
Yeah.
You serve as a subcommittee.
4 years.
You eventually take on projects. You get noticed. You serve 3 years on the board. Sometimes they serve as a secretary or a treasurer, and then they go on the ladder. And as Ian described, that's a 5-year commitment on top of everything else.
It never ceases to amaze me. So SEPA, we have a huge voluntarist commitment for our members. It never ceases to amaze me how much the profession is able to give back. You experience the same, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these individuals that care about the organization, but really care about their profession and want to make an impact somewhere.
Yeah.
And we hope that we can be that conduit for that.
And typically each committee has a chair and a vice chair, and it's 2 years for the vice chair, 2 years for the chair. So each committee, it's a 4-year commitment.
Yeah. How many committees do you have?
So it's between 50 and 60.
Oh, wow.
And, everything from the substantive law committees, patent law, trademark law, copyright law,
yeah.
to committee that are more professional, but based on the profession. So women in IP, diversity in IP, professional development, the committees, all of the things that certainly help from a substantive standpoint, but also help the practitioner. And particularly today, those are big issues.
And I think the committees, we have such a broad scope of committees that some of our committees might not have a large number of members, but some have extremely large number of members.
Know that, yeah.
But it also is, I think the committees are very important for our members to get involved, as a conduit to get involved, to understand the issues, learn about the issues, understand the issues, contribute, and provide feedback to the board, but also for younger members of our profession and of our membership to get involved and learn how to be leaders, learn how to organize a meeting, learn how to develop some confidence in maybe giving us a presentation in one of the committee meetings.
Yeah.
So I think the committee structure provides a lot of support to the board, but also support to our members and professional development for our members.
I mean, and you've got the challenge of geography as well, haven't you? And
It is. And even, you think of something as simple, if I can use that term, as a committee meeting. Well, you have 4 time zones, 3 hour, at least 3 hours apart, sometimes more than that. And even some of our, the international committees, for instance, IP practice in China, they have to have their meetings in the evening, late in the evening in U.S. time, in order for those members that are overseas to participate.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a challenge.
The committee thing at SEPA was actually how I first got involved. On our patents committee, which is kind of obviously a substantive one. And it was good for a number of reasons. As you say, it was really good just to learn how things get done almost, because there were actions coming out of it. It was when I realised that SEPA was, how important SEPA was. Because,
was that when I joined?
It was pretty much the same week I thought, wow, SEPA's important. I get it now. It's amazing.
So the substantive work, it's much the same way. The substantive work, 9.5 times out of 10 start in our committees.
Yeah.
And it's, rather than board-initiated activity. And it's really the development of those discussions and recommendations, resolutions to the board, or an amicus brief, or a comment letter. The board has the ultimate say, but we look to the substantive experts to develop that.
Yeah.
It's those kind of leadership skills that ultimately will get somebody noticed and placed on the board. It's very much a meritocracy. You don't buy a seat on the board by any stretch of the imagination. It's really something that's earned over a number of years.
The committee structure, any distributed organisation like yours, it's so difficult. We had this conversation earlier actually with people about making sure you're representative of the voice of your constituents. The committee structure, I think, is quite a good middle ground for doing that, because you're devolving some of the kind of board level responsibility down to this committee. And again, my experience with the substantive stuff, you mentioned like an amicus or a response to a consultation or a position paper. How does the autonomy work there? Your substantive committee will put the position together, run it past the board, or do you just say, guys, just get on with it, here's the brief? How does it work?
No, any policy statement ultimately has to go through the board. Right. So we look to the committee to develop the recommendation. Now, how they do that, we give them directions. Sometimes they're working independently. They ask for input from their committee members. Sometimes they do surveys. Sometimes they, will reach out to and pair with other committees. So you want to make sure that, there's been a lot of hands on it, a lot of eyes looking at it. And sometimes we even require them to have a vote. So so the board knows you're never going to get 100%, but you really have a feel of the general membership in terms of how they feel on this particular matter.
And when you get that communication saying, the consultation, we really want your input, 2 weeks. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How'd you mention that one?
There is the dread some have noted time and time again about coming into their office in the morning and there's an email from me because we've received this request for comments from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. By the way, we need it by next Thursday, or because we have to, because of our system, we've got to build in time not only for the board to hear it, but oftentimes also for the EXCO to carry out what the board decides. So sometimes they'll look at a recommendation, they want it changed or tweaked or even more than that sometimes, and then the EXCO is generally empowered to then make that happen.
Yeah.
So all that takes time.
And what's amazing is you get that email from Vince and you might go, oh my gosh, what do I do? But then people just pull up their bootstraps and just get it done because there's so much passion in our membership.
And to your comment about structure, every board member has about 3 committees that they're the liaison for. So we look to the board to provide leadership and guidance, and then staff also are assigned to certain committees to provide that. Again, because the board members are volunteers, so we want to make sure things stay on track, which is one of my primary responsibilities.
Can we touch on the relationship that we have? Because we have a reciprocal relationship. We come to you, you come to us. In fact, you're due to come fairly soon, which we're really looking forward to. How important is that relationship, and why?
Well, I think it's enormously important. I think there is tremendous respect for your organization, and as long as I've been around, it's been held in that in that light. I think as you touched on, we I think we have feet in 2 of the most innovative countries of the world, and we largely see a lot of alignment, and so having those discourses, sharing information, I think is a great benefit. I know it is for us. We've had reciprocal invites to the leadership back and forth to each meeting. We typically will host various leaders in your organization to meet with the EXCO, for small discussions. We just had one last week at our meeting in Daniel and Matt, and so that's a very nice position to be in.
And we have our IP in Europe committee that has delegation visits to your country, and we meet with your association. I've done 2 of them, or one where we unfortunately didn't get to your country, but last year, the year before, though, we did, and next week, the week after, we're going to be seeing you again. And those delegation trips are very important for developing relationships, for understanding each other, and for helping us build maybe a consensus with respect to various issues.
I mean, I think one of the areas where it's most valued to me, I remember the first diversity breakfast I attended, AIPLA visit to the UK diversity breakfast, which was really properly challenging us around how we thought we were responding to diversity, and it's really helpful to kind of see that through a different lens and have that challenge.
Was that the one 2 years ago?
So the first one for me would have gone back maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Because there was one 2 years ago.
There was one 2 years ago. I spoke at one 2 years ago.
We both spoke at that.
Yes.
And just sharing sharing the issues that we're facing, but also sharing what we're doing about under that heading of diversity and DEI. So those are very important
And we
ideas
do,
to share.
yeah, and we do have members in the UK. So
course, yeah.
so there may, there's certainly likely to be some overlap, and that's helpful as well.
Yeah. So can we? Unless, you want to say, Graham?
No, I've
Shall I
got
just
the
move on?
next one.
You're on there,
I'm
yeah.
cheating your list, so
You
I won't steal it. Yeah.
So one of the things that I had a little look at, I'm a bit of a strategic plan geek, so I do like reading. I do like reading strategic plans.
You need more hobbies. No, I'm just kidding.
Just to get a sort of sense of where organisations are and whether we're doing the same things. The reality is most membership organisations that currently have got the same challenges and are looking at doing the same things. So I saw in yours that it's really important that you're seen as the advocate for your members around IP law, policy and practice. You've got this big commitment to diversity that perhaps we can explore a wee bit. And the other two that we do a lot on is continued professional development and thought leadership.
Yeah.
So
So we have a very clever acronym. FAME is the acronym for our strategic plan, and it guides us.
Can we just try and guess what it stands for?
Yeah, go ahead.
Focus, ambition, momentum, and excellence. Go, Nick. No, Lee, you'll go.
That's really good, though.
I like that.
You've stolen all of the best words. I'm struggling with it. I can't think of another F other than focus. So come on, what are they?
Foundation.
Foundation.
Oh, so close,
Foundational.
so close.
I like focus, though. Basically, making sure our resources and structures are in place to, like the committee structure, and that we have the proper committee structure.
Yeah.
The committee, making sure all the areas are covered by our committees.
Yeah.
Foundational. A is for advocacy.
Yeah,
so close.
I would have gone advocacy.
Yeah, that was good. M is for member services,
Yeah.
or our community of members, and E is for education.
Fantastic. So ours is, let's see if we can do this reciprocally.
Oh yeah, go on.
So ours is SILC, SILC.
SILC.
It's a good game.
Okay, so the C is communication. Ooh,
No.
You've said what the C is already.
Community.
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 Okay.
You're going backwards on me. I was thinking S. Service.
Status.
Status.
Yeah, so we have a protected title, and it's our job to look after the chartered
Okay.
title. So
Okay.
yeah,
L legal or
learning.
Learning.
Okay.
Education.
That's
Yeah.
common. That's common.
Yeah, it's all common. It's really common. Yeah.
I. Intellectual
know.
property.
No, it's the advocacy thing. It's influence.
Influence.
So it's
the same.
It's
Very
amazing
similar.
how similar they were. Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And how do you? Well, so maybe I'll describe just structurally how we go about it.
Yeah.
So our board sets aside a time every 3 years, sets aside a weekend, a strategic planning retreat, bring in a facilitator, and then focus on whether the landscape and then where we want to be in those next 3 years and prioritize those initiatives accordingly. We have found that it's really important that it not be a document that sits on a shelf.
Yeah, definitely.
That we, it's supposed to guide and direct not only our daily activities, and to that end, the board, it's a part of every board meeting. That we have subcommittees of the board that are responsible for each of the pillars, and they are supposed to come back and report, at every meeting about progress and activities that are involved. So that's how we go about it from a institutional standpoint.
Much the same.
Yeah.
So when I came to CIPA, it didn't have a strategic plan. So the first time we did it, I did it. And the reason we've got the 4 pillars, I like pillars, I think we use pillars, but the reason we've got the 4 pillars is because I, rather naively at that time, and not really understanding how literal patent attorneys were, I told them to break up into groups and come back with 3 to 5 words. And if you say 3 to 5 to a patent attorney, that's 4.
Mid-range. Yeah, put it in the middle. Yeah.
And we had our retreat last year, didn't we? This time last year.
Yeah, I was a massive contributor to that.
You were? Yeah.
I turned up just after the substantive had finished and got everyone to the pub an hour earlier than they would have otherwise. So that was my main contribution.
That's what a good onsec does. Yeah, so much the same. Only this time round, because we'd done strategic planning across a couple of iterations by now, it was much more about not reinventing the strategic plan, but looking at a much bigger picture. Yeah, trying to reach out a bit more and think about our place in the world.
Yeah, it can be a challenge because the desires to do something new, right?
Yeah, always.
But you have to fundamentally understand what you do and what your members look to you for.
So I used the word purpose. So this time around it was like,
Yeah.
let's really understand our purpose.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah, we do a lot of discussion about our mission and how the strategic plan fits within the mission, and do we need to tweak the mission?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a tweak, but sometimes it's, just a refocus, but also important to remember, because we get grandiose ideas, but then we got to remember who our foundational base is and who we're serving.
So when you say foundation, you're talking about your constituency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more the structure, not only the committee structure, but headquarters. Does headquarters have the resources? Is the staff properly aligned? Our due structure, things like that. I mean, it's really the kind of the operational issues.
And do you go through a process of helping the staff own their place in the strategic plan?
Yeah. So we're blessed by my right hand, Megan Donahoe, who actually precedes me at the association by 8 months, and she is in charge of completely our operations and the staff, and we sit down with them after every strategic plan, go through it, so the staff understands the priorities that the board has set for that next period.
Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun, is there? We all do the same, the same thing largely. So advocacy. What sort of areas have you been working in recently for your members?
We do advocacy on the Hill, in the courts, to the patent office, the copyright office. We depend on Vince to be our voice, so to speak, for the most part. Some of us also will go and present in front of some of these bodies, but for the most part, Vince is our voice, and we do letters, we do amicus briefs, what else do we do? We testify, what else do we do?
So, in terms of the issues, everything's AI, or it seems that way now. And so, to the extent there were conversations on the Hill and in the agencies, we just filed comment letters to the USPTO on their AI guidance that was put out recently. Certainly in the administration, those are the kind of advocacy we do. Not just the PTO, but we've filed comments to the FTC and then NIST, and we did comments to the Copyright Office, even though it's a little different. And those are, on margin rights and things like that. Those are kind of the activities that certainly are expected and are of tremendous interest to our members. Our amicus activity, I think since Ann became president in October, we've done 5 or 6 amicus briefs. Mm-hmm. The latest Supreme Court decision that was a copyright case came down on all fours of where our brief was, so we're very gratified about that. And then the international advocacy, which we've talked about a little bit, but certainly we're active. We had a representative at the diplomatic conference in GRTK this past week. I guess it's into this week as well. And I'll be at the General Assemblies and wherever our members' interests take us. We try to be there within. The challenge is the resources. How do we do it in a manner that's credible and authoritative and makes sense?
Right, and we have to prioritize and listen to our members. Some of the more important ones to those that are in the patent or trademark trenches, or the fee bills. Those are something that we really do spend a lot of time on, and making sure that we give a voice to our members. And many of the proposed rules that come down that we're have to respond to, and we want to respond to on behalf of our members. And so that's where our committees come in and providing that input. After
a long period, we adjusted our member fees, and I expected a lot of emails, right? Because I barely heard anything, which is, again, I think gratifying. But
I'm thinking you adjusted down then.
We didn't ask for enough. Is that what I'll keep that in mind. But this, certainly this last proposal for the PTO on terminal disclaimers, hearing a lot from our members, both by email and certainly by, in the hallways of last week's meeting. There were, a lot of people are trying to figure it out, and I would assume we'll do comments for that. So.
I was going to ask how you get that feel about what's troubling the membership, because in Europe at the moment there's a bit of an attack on the European Patent Office from certain quarters about quality, and we've been legitimately able to say, well, it's not something that's really, we're not hearing it, and that's because I think we're having those conversations in the halls, and we get a lot of emails coming in, that I'm aware of.
In terms of for members, right?
Yeah, about things that CEPA should do.
So I think when I originally joined CEPA, yes, very often it was the members that would be pushing stuff through. But I think we're in the place now. So we've been campaigning on some fairly major stuff recently. The UK's accession to the CPTPP, for example, where we saw a potential existential threat, because the terms of the CPTPP around a grace period were significantly different to the European Patent Convention, to the degree where it could have spun us out of the EPC, and that's not something we could have countenanced, really. And yeah, similarly, we've done a membership fees thing recently, but I think because we're on top of this, we're on top of our game, aren't we, in terms of lobbying and campaigning at the moment, and our members see the value added.
Right. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're about I was getting this number wrong, about 4,000? 4,700. Okay, so 4,700 members in a fairly small country.
Yeah.
You guys, how do you do it? How do you stick together? I mean, you got a lot of time zones. We've got a consonant pretty much in 2 time zones.
Our marketing, again, under Megan's direction, our marketing communications does a tremendous job of trying to. It's not just even the advocacy efforts; it's the educational offerings, it's the committee activities, and it's everything across the board. And more, I assume, like you all, were moving those into social media, and it's it's less and less the, if you will, the publications, but it's the messaging.
Yeah, we're really excited. We're just about to launch an online learning community for our members. Sort of, I would call. I'm an educationist by background, so I would call it proper state of the art AI influenced learning platform that I think will just take CEPA's work to a different level in terms of. So yeah, ordinarily you do your webinars, you do your seminars, people learn stuff, but this will allow them to corral it, to share it, to kind of record it.
Interesting.
I'm
going to steal that.
Happy to share it. Yeah. Let us get it embedded and get it working. And
It is a challenge, right? So somebody does a very thoughtful, really well done presentation, and it goes into some, catalog, and it's not always easy to identify or to be able to refer to, and we were always looking at ways to improve.
So the challenge that we're trying to face is that our regulators, and this is the general move with regulators in the UK, so it's not an IP specific thing, and if anything, we're at the back end of this. It's happened to others first. So moving away from counting hours or points to counting impact. So it doesn't matter whether you've done 12 conference hours or 14 points in seminars or webinars. What you need to do is to reflect on your practice and be able to identify how your practice has changed by the learning interventions you've made. How cool is this? So that's the challenge I'm facing, is to bring in a system that will enable people to do that and also share it with their peers.
And how do you evaluate that?
It's self-evaluation and peer evaluation, and the system that we're introducing builds in all of those facets.
Peer evaluation within your own entity or within your organization?
Either. So it could be peer evaluation within your firm, but if you're a small sole trader, small business, you wouldn't have that peer structure, so you need to be able to share it out to a different peer network.
Yeah. You all can play that role.
And our aim is to play that role, because our regulators not really thought through the impact. You probably get this all the time. This is the change we're introducing, but actually I quite like that, because I want to be the solution.
That's interesting.
That's the value we bring to members.
We'll need to watch that, see how that works.
There's a hint of incredulity from the other side of the table. What I'm getting.
Fortunately, I've done this once before, so I've done this in another profession, so so I have a little bit of a head start.
I'll tell you a good way to do CPD, CLE is podcasts. We've learned so much doing this, because we sit every time but by definition, we're asking somebody about something we don't know about. Everyone should do a podcast. That's simple. There you go.
We've done 120 plus of these, and it's been the best learning experience of my life. So what else? I thought leadership. What do you guys do around that? That's not just policy and influence, and that's kind of advancing knowledge. Yeah.
So we are actually in the process.
Very timely question.
Yes, very. So as you know, we have put a pause. We've always had 3 meetings a year. One the spring meeting, one the annual meeting, and then our midwinter.
Yeah.
And we put a pause on the midwinter to try and reevaluate. The way the midwinter started was to be a focused institute, and then it kind of morphed and it became more like a regular stated meeting. So we said, let's just pause, let's just figure out what we want to do at that meeting. And so this coming January, dates, towards the end of January, we are doing a leadership forum, leadership forum, to bring our committee leaders, subcommittee leaders, chairs, vice chairs, chairs of subcommittees, vice chairs of subcommittees all together, and invited guests to learn from those more experienced in the leadership arena, and see how we can again give back to our members.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting.
In a very professional development manner. So it's not just giving them tips and advice on leading within AIPLA, but what can you take to your community, to your firm, to your corporation, to maybe your whatever organizations you're
Feels to me like
involved
you're taking people out of their comfort zone and really stretching them.
Right.
Hopefully.
That's our plan. So we're actively working on developing that program for January.
And we'll test the response to that. Again, it's part of this long range experiment, if you will, about what to do with that space. If we do anything, we did a DE&I colloquium, which and certainly welcome to discuss with you. But we're just going to try different things in that spot, see what works, and see the response members.
I was going to ask about the social side. Actually.
I could sense you kind of on my shoulder ready
Yeah,
to ask a question.
no. I think one of the things that SEPA does well, but it's difficult even again in a small island, is actually getting that sense of cohesion amongst the members and bringing them together. Do you try and do that? Is that just not possible with the kind of scale, or how does it work?
Well, the largest member is our annual meeting, and we had about 1,400 there for in October, and that is coming back to where it was in terms of numbers wise, but not quite pre-COVID, but we're certainly headed in that direction, which is gratifying. And I think that's the other thing. Where COVID was presented enormous challenges, but there were also opportunities to rethink how we do things. To I don't know if you all did it, talking about bringing members together. We experimented with hybrid, and it didn't work very well because the folks that were attending in person, both the speakers and the attendees, wanted to be there in person for that cohesiveness. And it was almost like doing 2 meetings at the same time. And of course, it's expensive, and you're very dependent on the hotel technology that you're there for. So we will continue to look at much like the leadership forum and these other opportunities that present us. We do at least 2 webcasts a month as a way of bringing people together. Some of the committees do their own on a monthly basis. So we try to. There's a lot of folks in our world that, as you know, can't come to meetings. So we still try to figure out a way to bring them together so they can, be really see the value in engaging it with the organization, and that's also a residual from COVID, where we had to test these new platforms and really make that happen.
And so not only do we have all the committees who do a number of social events at our stated meetings, they do a lot online, even now post-COVID. The agents committee, patent agents committee, does monthly calls, and not all of them are on a substantive topic. They might just be, let's just chat. The corporate committee does a brown bag. Once a month?
Brown bag?
Brown bag,
It's a lunch reference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Bring your brown bag to a meeting,
That would be a bribe in the UK.
We wouldn't call it that.
back to our little brown bag that we took our lunch to in grade
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
You know, that's the brown bag lunch.
Yeah, we use them for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's usually got bundles of notes in
But we have, so our committees do a lot on the social, from the social side as well as the educational side, for bringing people together, networking. That's a big aspect of what our committees do in terms of bringing people together. I can't tell you how many of my network of friends have come through AIPLA. Just from meeting them at committees, working together in committees, having a project to work on. It brings a lot of people, different people together that you normally wouldn't meet. And so I think that's an important aspect of what our organization does and our committees do.
We said we'd head towards hot topics. I don't know why we call it hot topics in. We want to know what's on your radar. What's coming over the hill? Actually, over the hill is probably not a great... I'm conscious it's probably not a phrase that you use in the States, is it?
Well, let's see. We talked about AI. We talked about the fees, the terminal disclaimers. We have legislation that we're all looking at. In particular, Vince is watching in our legislation committee. Do you want to speak a bit to that?
There's a couple of bills that have been bubbling in Congress. Whether they go anywhere or not, I think it's a question. One on addressing Section 101, patent eligibility, patent subject matter eligibility, and then Prevail, which would make some largely sort of administrative procedural changes to the PTAB at the PTO, looking back at how it has operated since the AIA, and we're supportive of both of those. So that it's a very difficult environment, as you can probably imagine, and given the current where we are in this Congress, the second year, it would be a heavy lift. But those are the kind of things that we're certainly shadowing. A lot of hearings, both in the House and the Senate. There's been a lot of focus on AI related, both the inventorship and authorship and the impact it may have, and certainly the underlying data issues and what it means for copyright law, et cetera. So those will be continuously monitored as we go forward.
Yeah, sure.
And so we'll be there for our members.
And so also back to the social side of things and hot topics in that arena, Vince mentioned the DEI colloquium that we co-sponsored with, who were ASIPI, IPIC, and Invent Together. That was held in January, the end of January. And we had speakers from USPTO, the Copyright Office, JPO, EPO, EU IPO,
IP Office Canada,
IP Office Canada, and it was
others.
a small group of 50 to 60, but it was a really intense session of about 2 days. And one of the things that was really came out of that was really important, I believe, and I think we got significant kudos for, was the openness of the discussion that we had. Sometimes you go into those types of conferences or meetings and you're like, I don't know what I can say, I'm a little nervous. But we just said, open it up. And that communication, I think, was extremely, I don't think, it was extremely important. It was extremely valuable for us to start sharing ideas and moving the needle, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was a very important one. And then also, we just finished up the Women's Entrepreneur Program that in conjunction with the USPTO, our Women's Committee, was it?
Primarily, and the mentoring committee.
Mentoring committee that put together a series of presentations to educate entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, and to provide more of a mentoring cluster arrangement. Instead of one-on-one mentoring, it was, okay, let's have the two of us with 2 or 3 entrepreneurs, and we kind of talk about issues that are important. They did, and so they developed, had those kinds of relationships. That's just a couple of recent programs that were under the topic of hot topics on a social side of things.
And that, that was a brand new initiative, worked in conjunction with the PTO. I think everyone seemed rather pleased with how it worked. They recorded it, so as new people come into the program, they can avail themselves of the lessons that are already there. I can imagine that will be a continual thing as we go forward here, as it was widely successful. You mentioned the Women in IP. I mean, that, I think we were one of the first organizations to have that. And
Definitely.
That committee's been around for decades.
Yeah.
And certainly our diversity and IP committee as well, from that standpoint. We were involved in the foundation, the establishment of the foundation, the
FDIPL, Foundation for the Advancement of Diversity and IP Law.
Which looks to identify, I know.
Do you always say it together?
Always.
High five.
That's an effort at identifying students in underrepresented groups, providing them support, both financial and mentoring, to further them at the early stages of their career.
I sat there thinking, glad they didn't ask us that. Are there any kind of hidden thing?
I think we're also trying to look at ways to reach out more to students.
Oh, yeah.
To see if we can't. We have within our membership committee Project Link program that reaches out to law students. We're also looking at how can we engage and help with, from the pro bono perspective, the law clinics that are in our law schools. So we're looking out, to see how we can help with future of the profession, future of the membership, and how we can help and engage that community.
And you might want to mention your priority regarding agents.
Right. So it's no secret that patent agents haven't always been full voting members of AIPLA, but for the last probably 15 years they have. And it's a very important aspect of our membership, because not everybody has to go to law school to be a patent agent in the U.S. to do patent prosecution. So we have a patent agents committee that is working hard at reaching out to other agents and contributing on the patent prosecution side of the issues that are come to us, and they provide a very important contribution to our positions, because truly they are, patent agents are in the trenches, so to speak, and so that's something that I find important, mostly because 30 plus years ago, when I started in the profession, I started as an agent. I went to law school because I didn't really think there was a career track for me. But there is a career track, and it's an important career track for our profession. And so I really put an emphasis on that in our my year.
Very interesting for us, because actually, although we are patent attorneys, we're patent agents. We don't, as you may know, in the UK, we don't do the law school thing. We come through a specific CPHR, patent attorney, and European patent attorney qualification. So it's good to hear that voice is heard. We kind of take it for granted. That's the relevant qualification. There's lots more to learn if you want to go in certain directions. But that bread and butter, and we actually had that event the other day. They meet the judges. Which is literally for the patent agents, not the litigators. The patent agents to meet the judges to say, you guys keep revoking stuff and complaining about, you have no idea how little we have to work with sometimes. It's a really good conversation, actually. And I think the judges really appreciated talking to the people on the front line as well for the same kind of reason. So it's good to hear.
Thank you both so much for taking time. I know it's a busy interview, for taking time out to come on the podcast with us. We always finish the podcast, though, with a little bit of a tangential question. So if you're just humorous for a moment, I'll ask Willem first, and then we'll kind of throw it in your direction, if that's okay. So we've been quite intrigued by the food, haven't we? The food element of being in the States. This is my first visit to the States, so it's all been a big learning experience for me. So, not on this trip, Gwilym, but in terms of your various travels around the world, particularly thinking about when you've been away on business, what's the most interesting thing you've ever eaten?
Either competition with a friend of mine in a restaurant in Beijing to see who could eat the worst bit of a boiled goat's head.
Oh, I think you probably win hands down
That's
already.
quite interesting. No, well, what was interesting was that I'm really hungry and a bit drunk, and he was sober and had just eaten. So it's quite easy for me. You'll eat a lip in those circumstances. You got the appetite, but he was sat there scooping away at the brains just because it was part of the game. That was everything about that was challenging. I think the ear was a surprise.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask anyone else. You've won. Vince, no, go on.
This is a horrible question. I can't beat that. I actually cannot
I
that.
don't normally come in with such a good answer, but I've done a lot of travel.
I will borrow from my wife, and she was on a trip, and they served her monkey brain, and so that was the
Yeah, that's pretty gruesome.
I think that satisfied. And I can't wait to hear yours. Knowing what I know.
They're going to censor my answer. You know they are. You know what my answer is. Because it's very, it's not because I've traveled around the world. It's because of where I come from, the Midwest.
Do you want to leave it there?
No,
We're not
going to.
Can I say it?
You can say it.
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Oh,
taste like
Yes.
chicken.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Taste like chicken.
Yeah.
I've had chicken oysters.
No, I don't. I haven't done
So
there.
big.
Beef. I'm sorry.
Lee.
So, but mine is so tame.
Balls of brains, Lee. Balls of brains. That's what we're talking here.
No. So this was my first working visit to Poland, when we were taken to a monastery for our evening meal, and I was so famished. First thing was no alcohol. They didn't serve alcohol, so you got a glass of orange squash, and then dinner was a scooped out bread roll with a very watery soup in it.
Oh,
So it was
that's a problem.
Charles Dickensy stuff.
Is this when you were training as a monk? You've not told us about it.
So I can't compete with that. But that
Why
was,
didn't you just talk about when you went to Poland and licked the walls in the salt mine? I mean,
that wasn't
comes
food.
on Poland
That wasn't
as well.
food. That was just my own personal kind of No, thank you both for coming on the podcast. We really do appreciate it, and share with your members because we'd like to reach out to them. Gwilym, I'll see you on the next one, which isn't today. We get a break now. So I don't know whether you're listening to this podcast because you're at INTA and you're listening to it for the first time, or whether you're one of our seasoned listeners. But however you've come to the podcast, if you've liked it, if you've enjoyed it, then leave us a review on your platform of choice, because then we can extend our listenership.
That's exactly how the Beatles broke America.
Was it?
Yeah, just it was all about reviews.
Are you John and my Yoko?
Yes.
Perfect.